the idea of Lunch with Tom actually came from one of my mentors who was a superintendent out in San Diego and Long Beach for a long time. And he did something called Cookies with Carl. And I guess their district had amazing cookies. So I've got to figure out, what the treat is. And hopefully at some point we can, maybe easier to do some of these virtually, but it also may be good to do some of these in person at some point when we're able to do that. Hopefully that is not too far away from where we are now. But definitely not now. So, but appreciate you all being here. And the idea really is this is our first one. So thank you all for being here. I'm glad that so many of you were able to see this and have the time to be able to jump on here. The idea is really to provide an opportunity for me to engage with the BSD community, with staff, with parents, with members of the public who are invested in our success. And so I'm looking forward to getting this started. Again, this is our first one, and I'm just excited for the opportunity. We also want to be able to communicate district updates. So this is a place where, we probably will spend the beginning of the meeting. I will spend the beginning of the meeting talking about the district. Today it'll just be me, but I do have members of the staff here and school board members, and so we will be able to be a team here to answer questions and just to really have a conversation with you all. It's meant to be informal. It's meant to be an opportunity for conversation, but also this, another outlet for communication, in addition to the kind of regular written communication and school board meetings. And then, as I said, just an opportunity for conversation about those issues that are happening in BSD that are most timely. So we're going to be looking to talk about the things that we're really working on, and make sure that there's an opportunity for you to hear about those and to ask questions and to talk about them. The only thing I would ask is if you have specific questions about yourself or a student or something like that, I'll make sure that you have my email address at the end, but I would encourage you just to reach out to me directly about those kind of specific individual questions. And then it's also an opportunity to just build relationships. I feel like one of the really important things about running a school district is to have relationships. And I'm new to Burlington, and so I want to have the opportunity to meet people and build those relationships and to build community here too. So also an opportunity for community for the community to see each other. So, and again, the updates will take 15 minutes, and then we have a good chunk of time for conversation. So I wanted to frame the beginning of the conversation around our goals for the school year 2021. We set a series of goals at the beginning of the summer with my leadership team at the school, and then worked closely with the school board to get their feedback on these. We're in the 5th year of a 5-year strategic plan. So I came in sort of at an interesting time because it's the 5th year of a 5-year strategic plan. But we wanted to make sure we had measurable outcomes, and we had sort of clear goals and measurable outcomes around those goals, just to start building those muscles around implementing a strategic plan and living by a strategic plan. So these are our strategic goals for this year. We're going to begin a strategic planning process that I'll talk about in future conversations, or future lunches. But we're going to start a strategic planning process this spring, late winter and early spring, to have a 5-year strategic plan, a new 5-year strategic plan ready and in place for the next 5 years. But we want it to be ready at the beginning of next school year. So these are equity focused goals. They're goals that are some academic, some kind of core academic reading and math goals, but also access goals, access to higher level content for all students, and then some specific goals around community, around creating restorative and equitable communities, is that first goal, and a long-standing goal of the district to create more diverse pipelines and more diversity among our staff, so that our students see the staff members who they can see themselves in. And we know that research tells us that students of color and all students do better when they have teachers of color as well. So that's I know been a long-standing goal for the district, and one that we're continuing to push on and really will be doubling down on. So those are our goals. Wanted to give folks an update on return to break. The news picked up one quote or one snippet of my response of being back to school. I'm personally excited. I walked my twin second graders into school, and all the normal sort of jitters of coming back to school and the excitement of coming back to school. I really think it's important to spend time in schools personally as the superintendent to understand what's happening in our schools. And I just saw lots of joy. I mean, whenever I go into our schools, I'm very impressed with the level of joy and excitement that students show in their learning. I'm seeing a lot of really productive and positive classrooms. I think we have work to do. One of my goals is around creating more opportunities for deeper learning. And so I'm excited to embark more on that work, but I'm really generally impressed with what I'm seeing in classrooms. We're doubling down on screening. So we are making sure that we're asking questions so that we make sure that students and staff are being conscious of how they're feeling as they're coming into the building and any risk factors that they may have. And that's been our big change from before break to coming back from break in terms of our process. We've tightened a little bit also around pods and making sure that groups of students, particularly out on the playgrounds, are staying together as a pod and not mixing too much. So we're doubling down on both the screening and the podding. But in general, if you walk in the buildings, school looks the same, and students are doing their thing, and so are our staff, and it looks good to me. And I just want to make sure people know that the Vermont Department of Health, we're working really closely with them on every move we're making here, particularly as it relates to contact tracing when we have members of our community who are positive for COVID. And they're telling us that schools are safe. So we did have to close and go remote for the last 2 days before break. That was really because we needed to be able to keep up with contact tracing, and we were needing to quarantine a number of people because they were potential close contacts, and so it became a staffing issue. It was not because of the safety of the schools. I believe the schools are safe. I'm there. My 3 kids are in the schools every day, or on the days they're supposed to be, and I feel very confident that our schools continue to be safe. And I know there's fear and anxiety out there about being in person. And so I also just want to recognize that. And I hear that, and I'm going to be really watching the numbers very, very carefully, and watching our community very carefully to make sure we're making the right decisions. If we need to go remote, we will. But right now, I don't believe we should be remote. And the why is really because of equity and deep learning and wellness. Our students, a lot of the things that our students need to be well are in school. Food, social emotional support, friendships, and community. And then we just know that learning is not as good as it can be in person when it is remote. Not that remote learning can't be okay. It's just not the ideal mode for learning, and it's particularly not for students who need us the most, for students who are learning English, for students who have special education needs, and those students who need our additional supports. So for me, it's really an equity imperative to be in school when it is still safe to be in school. And how to help as the community really is avoiding travel, following the Vermont directives. And what we found before break is really just being conscious, and this is why we're doubling down on our screening efforts, of really being conscious of how you're feeling, how we are feeling as we're coming into the buildings, and making sure we're not coming into the buildings if we're not feeling well. So that's sort of the back to school update. And then there's a lot that is happening and has been happening, as you all know, around Burlington High School. I know we have a wonderful high school out there. I've had an opportunity to see them in action a little bit now, more than before, because they're in person on Wednesdays. And I was excited over the break to be able to go to the new site, the downtown Burlington High School, where the walls, as you can see in this picture here, are starting to be framed out, and you can really see the school starting to take shape. And I think it's going to be exciting to have a school downtown, and to be in the city, and in a place where there are so many opportunities for students for internships and partnerships for the district, and for students, and sort of building out those types of learning experiences like Burlington City and Lake is able to offer, that embed students learning in their community. I just think that's such an important way for us to run our schools, and being downtown, I think, provides significant opportunities for that. We're looking for BHS to be completed on February 22nd, the fit up of the building, and our move-in date is scheduled for the first or second week of March. It won't be the first day of March, but it may be the second half, that Thursday in the first week of March, or the Monday of the second week of March. It's a big investment for us. This is a big unknown investment, and our unplanned investment that we're having to make here, because of the PCB issue that we found at the high school late summer. But we have been working with the governor and his team, and the governor has told us that he really wants to support us in any way he can. And so I think we're going to see some significant support from the governor, and his staff, behind this fit up cost, which is a $3.5 million fit up cost, and then a $1.9 million rent over the next 3.5 years. Meanwhile, back at the old high school, we've got Institute Road campus back at the old high school. We do have permission to use the building for sports. We can be in the building in certain parts of the building where the numbers are actually below or right at the screening threshold that the Vermont Department of Health has set of 15 nanograms per cubic meter. We do have some spaces like the gym that are right below 15, or right around 15. And so the Department of Health has told us it's safe for us to be in those limited spaces for under 30 hours a week. So we will be using the gym, and we do have sports that have started, which is great. Our students are really benefit from those activities, and those have started. We're still testing. There's a lot that goes in. I'm learning a lot about PCB testing, and there's a lot that goes into the testing of the PCBs to really understand where the PCB contamination is coming from, and then to be able to understand how to mitigate that, and then to actually mitigate it. So we won't really fully understand the cause of the level of PCB contamination at the high school, we don't think until summer of 2021. So this upcoming summer, and that'll be after those things that I mentioned happen. So BHS, but mostly excited to get into the downtown site in March. And then the last major thing on the agenda for today, and on our radar right now, is the FY22 budget. So we're working toward the completion, a January 19th school board vote around the budget. And the budget's really challenging across the state right now. The projection, there was a letter that came out that projected a 9% increase in statewide for tax rates. That would be more like 13% in Burlington if we didn't find savings. So my charge to my cabinet and my team is to find savings, to figure out where we can save, so that's the work that we've been doing. And that's really important for us to do, because even if we did nothing, we would still have, or even if we didn't add anything, but didn't do any cost saving activities, again, it would be a 13% increase, and it's about a $2.3 million increase to the budget just to operate with wage increases and all the other sort of operational increases that happen every year. So we're looking for savings, but not looking to do any major program cuts or any major any layoffs or anything like that. We're looking to find savings and efficiencies where we can. There are some operational efficiencies that we presented to the board last night that we can utilize. And then we're also going to have a surplus because of the not being in-person operating in the spring and throughout the summer. We do have a surplus, and we usually carry between a $1 to $1.5 million surplus. We're anticipating the surplus will be a little higher than that this year. And then, as I said, we're seeking aid for BHS downtown as well. Very few ads. We are adding. I am proposing an ad for us to be able to communicate with our multilingual families and support them 12 months a year. And so that's one add to the budget. I believe that's a baseline expectation that we should have for ourselves, and not a superfluous ad, but just one that is a base need. Otherwise, very, very little in the realm of additions and some pretty significant savings that we'll be able to find, I think, without seriously impacting any programming. And here's the budget timeline. So the information is online. We had a school board meeting last night. There's another school board meeting. There was a survey that went out, so we received survey feedback. And we had a couple meetings with the community last month. And then a finance committee meeting on the 14th, and a final school board meeting on the 14th, and a final school board meeting on the 19th. And then the town meeting day is the 2nd of March. So that's the update. I just beat my 15 minutes. I hope I didn't take too long or bore anybody, but I wanted to make sure you had that update. So
I'm impressed.
I'll open it up. Did I talk too fast, Russ?
You know, we had a meeting before this meeting, and I bet Tom that he couldn't do it in 15 minutes. So I'm very impressed. Just so everybody knows, I'm gonna drop a link to that presentation in the chat, and I'm gonna drop a link to our budget website in the chat so that you can have that for future reference.
And I also, just as we open it up, I want to give a shout out. I see a couple of many familiar faces out there, so it's good to see you all. And this idea came from, as I said earlier, Carl Cohen, my mentor out in California, who was a superintendent and did Cookies with Carl, but also Megan Munson-Morkin, who's on the phone here, said, Tom, we need press conferences. We want, let's get you out there. So Megan, I appreciate your feedback and support, and glad you're here. So we'll open it up. Questions, conversation. Yes, Ian.
Hey, Tom.
Hi.
Everybody, thanks so much for doing this. This is really nice. So I have two questions. I'm a teacher and a parent. I have two kids at the high school, and I also teach at Edmonds Middle School. So I'll ask my two questions and then just listen to the answers from whoever wants to answer them. With my parent hat on, my two boys who go to Edmonds for high school, this morning, for example, there were only 4 kids in each of their classes today, or 5 kids in some of their classes. So attendance was really poor in the morning at BHS this morning. And I'm wondering if that has to do with the time. The 8A kids go at 8 o'clock in the morning, which has been really hard because most high school kids have been sleeping till 10. And so there's an equity issue with the 8A B-Day thing going on. So maybe if you could address that, that's a little disappointing to hear that the attendance was that poor. And then my second question is with my teacher hat on. I know we're doing COVID testing for teachers, but the testing was on a Wednesday, and many teachers are remote at home on Wednesdays. And so, for example, I didn't get tested today because I'm at home and I didn't feel like going to Edmonds to get tested, going all the way to downtown to get tested for COVID.
Right.
So I'm wondering if future testing might be given on days where teachers are actually in the building. So those are my two questions.
Sure. Yeah. So, and we also have Becca McCrae, our COVID coordinator here. So she can talk a little bit about the testing and sort of how we landed on where we are. I'd like there to be more testing. I'm also really disappointed in the vaccination schedule, but maybe that's just me. I'm not sure. But so we'll come back to that one. I'll take the first one first, which is the question about attendance. I'm watching the attendance at the high school. I'm watching the attendance across schools. We're sort of averaging around 90% attendance daily across the schools, and which is not great, but not horrible. In the high school attendance, I did look at it. Looks like we were dipping on Wednesdays, but I need to look at today because I won't see that until the end of the day today. I have gone to the high school I didn't make it there today, but I have been to each of the in-person days, and I haven't seen low numbers in classes as I've been observing the classes. But that's not to say that there's not an issue there. So Ian, I'm going to take that back to the BHS team, and I'm going to look at the attendance for Wednesdays and for today in particular, and think about the impact. So what's your suggestion for attendance?
I know that it's tricky, but like for teenagers to get up at 7:30 after having slept until 10 every
Yeah.
single day for their entire first semester, those 8A kids are probably having a much harder time getting to school than the B-Day kids don't have to go till noon.
Right.
I don't know that that an alternating flip back and forth would work for families who maybe have to make plans for, when their kids need to be at school or not. But whether it's an equity issue or not, I'm not sure. But both my kids reported that there were less than half the kids were in their classes this morning in most of their classes. So that might be or maybe it's just coming back from break. I'm not sure.
It might be, yeah. I think that our classes before break we weren't having significant attendance issues, but it was lower than normal, and so that was a concern. And I wasn't out there today, so I'm not sure if today, because we're coming back from break, and maybe there are sort of additional fears around being back in person that may be impacting that. But that's kind of speculation on my point. So let me look into it. It looks like. Yeah, so let me look into that and
yeah,
see.
and anecdotally, there are, as a teacher, I've had several families either move to fully remote or talking about going to fully remote. So there definitely is out in the community. I'm sure you've heard this.
Yes.
Out in the community, there's definitely a higher level of anxiety and fear around the COVID stuff now. So
yeah, I'm definitely feeling and hearing that. Again, I do feel like our schools are safe. I really, really, truly do. But I also understand that there's legitimate fear and concern out there. And in terms of testing, we are working with the state on testing, and they actually give us our day for testing. But we decided to have it in one place just to sort of for ease of being able to make the testing happen. It looks like Becca had to jump on a call, but maybe I'll pause on that one and let her come back to the testing question after when she's ready. Sound fair? Okay. Joanna, hi.
Hi, Tom. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for doing this. It's nice to see you all. I know I haven't been super involved lately, but I appreciate all of you and everything you're doing. Can you hear me okay? I've noticed my internet has been, okay, I just want to make sure. So I had two different things that, like, one especially, and like, I know it's budget season and I don't want to like hit hard on budget stuff actually, but I noticed that the strategic goals don't explicitly state anything about academic excellence. And that's always been one of my sort of gripes about the district. And so this is a little footnote. It's not really the main thing I wanted to say, but I'm hoping that, like, maybe at the end of the 5 years when we do our next strategic plan, we can really put a strong emphasis on academic excellence, because I like to see the kids reaching for the stars,
Me too.
Yeah, I know you do. And I think we're of a similar mind in that way. So the thing I really wanted to raise is something that I know we're in COVID and everything is really hard right now. And that is not lost on me. So bear that in mind when I say this, but I feel like the district I'm not seeing a lot of restorative practices happening. And I'm sort of wondering what that's about and where we're at with that. We went from Champlain to integrated arts. And when we were at Champlain, it was always like, oh, well, the teachers haven't had enough training. And now it's like, oh, well, we only use restorative practices for this or that. And then I do think it's really important for kids to learn how to like restore relationships. And I'm concerned that I just kind of see that sort of lacking in a lot of ways. And I've been in two different schools now, and I've heard other parents feel that way. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, are we really using restorative practices? I see the word, I see the term used a lot, but I'm really not seeing it.
Tom, do you mind if I ask a clarifying question there?
Sure.
Are you,
You introduce yourself for us?
sorry, Joanna, my name is Russ Ellick. I'm communication, as you know, we've been in district for a few years now, but for everybody else, I do communication in the district. I also just am putting sort of an RP hat on as I ask for clarification. I serve on the central office restorative practices leadership team. All of our school districts, all of our buildings have a leadership team except for property services right now. And that's something that we're working with Marty on to figure out how to bring them into the fold. And I also attend something called the Restorative Practices Collaborative, which happens on a monthly basis, which has team members such as myself from every building that come together to share thoughts, resources, ideas. And I'm on the communication team for restorative practices. So I'm sort of in it right now. So my question to you would be, do you feel like specifically you're not seeing restorative practices being used to repair harm right now?
That is what I'm seeing. Like, I feel like when kids have conflicts, they're dealt with in a sort of very conventional, leave it on the playground sort of thing.
Yeah, so I think, you know, with no principles on here, I would say that that's probably a fairly accurate assessment on your part. And I would say that in the district right now, we are still working on what is called tier 1 of restorative practices. And tier 1 of restorative practices is really about relationship building and connection so that we can have a strong community. There are some schools that we think are ready to go to tier 2, which is where you use restorative, where you repair harm using restorative practices, but we don't think every school is there right now. So that's why I think you are seeing more about, you're still hearing about circle time, connection time. You're hearing about a real focus on building community within schools. And so that's all tier 1 of RP stuff. And I don't think a lot of schools are yet at tier 2.
Yeah, so let me just follow up on that really quick. So my daughter's in 5th grade, so this is our 6th year in the district. And I do feel like I've been hearing some flavor of that answer for 6 years. So I'm sort of curious, like, what it takes to be ready.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, I'll just say that it's been hard for me to sort of assess where we are with restorative practices, aside from the surveys, just because we're operating in a pandemic and things have been not normal in any way. But before I came on board here, I had the opportunity to talk to lots and lots of people, and I had, I probably had like 70 one-on-one conversations, and I asked 3 questions: what are the strengths, what are the needed improvements, and what are the promising opportunities? And the restorative practices showed up in so many of the kind of promising opportunities answers, and then I started to, so that actually is our first goal, is restorative and equitable communities. And I told people when I got here on the cabinet, this is something the community and you all, because some of those people were principals and members of my cabinet, say is like, we've got a little foothold here, and there's a lot to build off of, but we're not there yet, and let's not lose it. There was a fear that we were going to go in a different direction and do some other thing, or just forget about it. So I would just say that we are continuing to say that we're continuing to make it a priority and state it as it's actually our number 1 goal in those 5 goals. But saying that it's a priority, setting goals around it, I think is important. But then the work is deep and challenging work. And I will say that here, I was in Providence before here, and there was a major battle about restorative practices where a lot of people didn't want restorative practices because they felt like it let kids off the hook. I was really happy to see here that feeling didn't exist in any significant way. So I just feel like I think it's a promising opportunity, but I think you're right, and it's fair, and the feedback is taken that it takes a long time, and we need to keep attuned to the work that's happening there and not let it fall flat, or not just talk about it and not do anything about it. I will say too, ongoing, I mean, there's continual ongoing training that's happening around this. There's a district restorative practices team, school-based restorative practices teams that are functioning. And so I do feel optimistic that we'll start to see it and feel it more. But that's where we are now.
This is Rich Bassett. I've got a quick question about the current or the old high school. Next week, could you put together a slide of like what the status is with regards to any testing or construction, or has the hammer been lifted over there? Like just kind of a status of what's going on with the old project.
Yeah, Rich, I'll take that one, and then Megan and then Valerie, I saw their hands up, so we'll go to them after this question about the old high school. The work on the old high school continues. We are continuing with the re-envisioning project that we started, and that work is continuing. We are currently investigating the PCBs by doing testing and remediation and a pilot project over there. But we are not that, so there's a lot of work happening there, but we're not going to know the detail. We're not going to fully understand the source or the extent of the PCB problem at BHS until this summer. So that's just where we are. There's a lot of work. Marty Spalding is actually on the call here. He's our director of property services, and Tom Peterson too, who is our consultant who is working with us closely on this. Marty, do you want to add in?
Well, thank you, Tom. What I will add is we have what we call a building construction oversight committee meeting once a month, every third Thursday at I believe it's 5:30, which is a opportunity for you to understand where we're at with the construction project, focus strictly on that project. So that is a good opportunity to get updated about where we're at, and we can also share some additional information on our website and to our board. I actually believe that those meetings are also available on our website to view as well.
And I think we probably, Rich, have a deck available that we can send over your way too, that details where we are as of not too long ago, maybe a couple weeks ago.
Right. No, I like the idea of utilizing the BHS website. So,
yeah,
I work professionally as like program management type of stuff, and same thing. You got a large audience to get information, and just like a quick 1 or 2 page summary posted out there, so people can kind of get a status on what's the plan on the new building, how's things coming, where are we at, and then the same thing, and hey, we haven't forgotten about the big picture, and here's where we are, here's what we're waiting on. Because I personally felt like I've been in the dark, and I've spoken to other parents too, and they're often not much more aware than I am.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's fair, and I think we get caught up in all the work that's going into finding an immediate solution for BHS, and while the work is continuing, we are not necessarily talking about it in a way that's as public as maybe we could. So I appreciate the feedback there. Russ, on the web page, is everything on there that needs to be?
I think the one thing that's missing right now is I'm having our web person go and dig them up. RETN records all of these meetings, and we have them on the website up until September. So it's just a matter of grabbing them from RETN and making sure that they're linked on our website. And she's working on that yesterday and today, actually. So all the meeting minutes are up to date there. we haven't done a big update specifically on BHS probably since November or October, but I also want to encourage people to read Tom's almost weekly, we'll call them, community updates. I believe there's been a section about BHS in each one of those updates for the past 3 or 4 months, including the most recent one that talks about this pilot program, looking to identify where all the PCBs are, and being able to have some real data to make decisions about the building this summer.
Russ, quick clarification. I know that the info is on our district website. Do you know, because I heard the question about being on the high school website.
I believe I could do a quick check, but I thought I had set it up so that is accessible through maybe yeah.
All
So
right,
on the
let's keep moving, and we'll make sure it's posted in both places. Meg, you
Hi,
were up, I believe.
everyone. Sorry about the noise in the background. That was high school students, one heading out. I wanted to just first thank you, Tom, for having this and for scheduling them going into the spring throughout the year, and to just recognize I've been in the district now 13 years. My son is a senior, and this feels restorative. Actually, this act, being together and seeing you all, and having access to you and hearing concerns both from my peers, my parent peers, but also the chat. We have not always had an administration who is willing to, in fact, we haven't. And I think I just want to recognize that there has been damage in our community that does need repair work. And this feels like a really powerful step in that direction. So I just wanted to thank you very publicly for that. And I'm reading the chat. I don't totally know how to respond to things in this day and age with like multiple conversations going on. But one of the threats, so I kind of want to respond, but then I don't want to distract. I really appreciate what's happening in there, and wanted to ask the question related to a few different points in it. The restorative practice and attendance and timing, and ask if you all will be checking in with students, actually checking in with the high school students in a sort of survey form to say, like, is this working? Is 8 a.m. working? Are you enjoying going to school for half a day? What is it we could be doing that would provide you more time, for example? Or to Joanna and others' point, and I also have a son with autism, and I don't even know anything about restorative practices happening at either IAA or we're now at EMS. I have no idea how he'd participate in that. How do you feel about these restorative practices? Going so often, I think as adults and educators, I'm also an educator, we assume things are working or we assume they're not working. And we don't actually really know from the student level sort of where kids are feeling. So I guess I'm wondering if there's sort of a move in your administration to start asking the right questions of kids, or even asking like, what are the questions we should be asking? And so that when you come to things like this, you can say, you have that data, right? The kids say 90% of kids responded. I was in New Zealand on an educational tour with UVM. Hi, Ellen. Years ago. And one of the things that was really striking to me was that I went to a lot of middle schools where the primary goal of the principal was that kids wanted to be in school. Like the number one thing they focused on was having kids who weren't absent because they wanted to be there. Yeah. And so how do we move as a district to schools where kids really want to be there? They're not absent because they feel seen, they feel heard, they feel challenged, they feel nurtured, and they feel like the adults see them. And I love, the last thing I'll say is, Ellen, thank you for offering UVM. And I hope that this administration will just work, we've got these partners out there. And if we have folks like Ellen and others who are willing to work with us, You have to create the buy-in for that on the teachers and the kid level too, right? And so often we just put things on schools and say, now you have to do this, without creating that buy-in, which might be why there's 6 years worth, and arguably that's too long. But maybe the goal was to try to create that internal motivation for teachers and staff to see the value. And so maybe the fact that it's taken 6 years is an indication that, like, we haven't done it well. And that we need to return to that. So thank you, everyone. I will stop there. But the question is about kid feedback.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And I just to start, Ellen and I have talked a couple of times already, and I've got kind of 3 priority areas that I had coming in. They're equity, engagement, and deep learning. And engagement is really important to me, and sort of the partnership with community partners, with you all, with students. I put in that group around engagement as well, and probably they should be the first group that we think about. I care deeply about student engagement and student voice, and I also don't think I've done a great job so far of hearing that in a way that I feel great about yet. So that's something that I really want to build on. I think the survey is a great idea. I think there are a lot of ways to do it. The first major engagement I had with students was when students reached out to me when we had to close the high school. And I had a couple of great meetings with a group of high school students around that, and took some of their feedback. We also have a student advisory council. Some of your kids are on that council, and that's just been awesome. So Kelly is here. And so we're working on building spaces for student voice to be heard by me, but also for their voice to be heard more broadly in the decisions that we're making as a district. So I think that that's something we need to really work on. I will say too, our kids are as you all know, they're in very different places around how they're feeling about being in person, particularly at BHS. Or even with my family, they were all going to school A day, B day, and then the twins in second grade started going to school 4 days a week, and the twins were mad that I made them go to school 4 days a week, and the middle schooler was mad at me that I didn't make her go to school 4 days a week. So there was no winning in the Flanagan household on that decision. But we did, Victor and I met with a group of students over at BHS the other day, and we heard some really compelling stories about why it's important for students to be in person. And just heard, very clearly how important that connection is for them, and how important it is too for them to have the opportunity and the space to be in a learning environment with their peers without sort of the additional distractions that are there. We also had a student who said he would much prefer to be in remote learning in that group of 4. So, anyway, long story short, it's important, I think, it's really important for us, and we will prioritize hearing students in the decisions we're making, and we need to do better with that.
And I just want to address the 2 things that came up in there that were sort of questions for us, like, do we do these things? We do survey students each year about restorative practices, the use of restorative practices. We did not do it. We typically do it in the spring. So around April, May. We did not do it at the end of last school year for obvious reasons. So I do believe that they're planning to do that survey again. They also survey teachers each year to see where is that buy-in. And we're seeing that number move up, that more teachers are buying into this idea. And then the specific question was, should UVM be involved? We actually do have consultants from UVM on our restorative practices leadership and strategy teams that are helping us roll this work out. So we are utilizing folks at UVM.
All right, Valerie, thank you, Russ. Valerie was up.
Thank you. Thanks, Tom, for hosting this. This is terrific. It really makes me realize how much I miss seeing other parents and just connecting around this really challenging journey.
Yeah.
I have a couple, I'll try to make it quick. Attendance, we're having low attendance in the afternoon sessions as well. I have 3 high schoolers, 9th, 11th, and 12th grade. And Henry has been either alone or with one other student in his, a few of his classes. So I get just that rich get richer kind of feeling again.
Yep.
So that's one concern. There's actually, my kids kind of cranked the math, and there's a loss of instructional time with going to Edmonds on, for shorter class on Wednesday. To me, it's totally worth it to get the in-person. But I
Yeah.
guess the segue is when they get to Macy's, why can't Wednesday be a flipped day so that they have 3 days in person one week and 2 the next? Is that a contractual issue or what? Just in terms of like kind of feeling this forward momentum around getting academics back and a little bit more face time. So that's actually a question about Macy's. And then the last piece that, I feel like we're in the home stretch, right? I've got March kind of in sight, but at the same time, if we were to say a year ago all this happened, we had 2 more months of this, that would seem interminable, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think it's too late to ask the question about the screen time issue. I'm just really concerned. My kids have the benefit of a lot of opportunities off screen because I can provide that for them. But even in our family, I'm feeling very concerned about the number of hours on the screen, the multitasking, anything from vision issues to attention span, to just being sedentary. I've spoken with all of their teachers about possibly assigning some things that are off screen. And I understand there's an equity issue with that if kids don't have access to a book or a ruler to do the measurement or to, a safe place to go outside and do an observation or whatever. But there are parents in the district who have more capacity than others that could do kind of a peer-to-peer. I mean, I would buy books and deliver them, for goodness sake, to the students in the class if it meant that an assignment could be off the screen. So Macy's attendance, a number of days, and screen are the ones I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And just to start, Victor did text me the numbers, and the attendance numbers at BHS on when today are not good. So we do have an issue there that we need to deal with.
I'm not talking about today, just to be clear.
No.
Henry's been the only student in his class for the whole time.
Okay. Wednesdays at Macy's it is definitely a possibility. It's something that we have an agreement with the BEA, with the Burlington Educators Association, the union that represents our teachers and paraeducators. And in order for, so we had to come to an agreement around time. And that agreement was sort of a blanket agreement because it covered K to 12. And so I do think that it's something that we can and should revisit as we come back in March. There's a possibility for learning on Wednesday, but we haven't started those conversations, and we should do that. So Victor, can you help me remember to make that a part of our task force conversation?
Yep.
And there are a couple of different ways to do it. It could be half days. There was concern originally. Originally, I had proposed 3 days on 1 week, 2 days on the next week. There was concern about the schedule flip-flopping and not having consistency around the days. But I do think that that's something we just need to come back to, and we need to do it soon because March is going to be here before we know it. We're really fortunate. I don't know if you all know Gail Botello and Jocelyn Fletcher. They're 2 Burlington School Department staff members who we've assigned to work with the high school in planning to get back into Macy's. So they've been doing a ton of work and showing great leadership with Noel and his team to get us ready for Macy's. So I asked Victor to bring it to the task force because we meet every week as a task force to do the planning around the high school work. So we'll add that to the list of items that we need to talk about. And then screen time is I agree with you that I don't want my students or any of the students in my care to be on screens for huge amounts of time during the day. And I think that our students are on screens too much, and particularly at the high school. So it's been kind of vexing, the screen issue. I mean, the cameras on or off, the screens on or off. Is it class if you start a class and then have students go off to work off the screen and then come back? These are all things that the high school team has been wrestling with as they've been from the beginning of the year trying to define what engagement means and what engagement looks like in a virtual world. And in a world where not everyone where multiple students in every classroom can't have their cameras on because the speed of the internet access is not fast enough. And so you can't actually speak and hear with your camera on, but if you turn it off, you can, right? So there's just so many challenges around this piece. I mean, for me, honestly, 2 months is a long time. So we need to consider the amount of screen time. I think that we've been hearing more about needing to have presence during screen time than we've been hearing about not having as much screen time, which doesn't help my answer to you, Valerie, which is I don't have a great answer. You know, it's hard because I agree with you completely. And I don't see a great solution in the next couple of months on the screen time issue. I don't know, Victor, you've been working with BHS a lot around this. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely
Victor,
tough.
Can you introduce, I know you know many people.
Oh, sorry.
Introduce yourself.
Sorry. Yeah, hi, I'm Victor Prusak. I'm the coordinator of the Office of Engagement. I know most of you. Good to see your faces as well. Valerie, I agree with you. It's sort of weird not running into families during a school year. So yeah, I think the bigger issue here at the high school level has to do just with the remote, all those remote days, which is why like I am counting the days to when we're going to be downtown in person. It's definitely something that we can bring up. I think it varies by teacher. Certain teachers have figured out ways to get materials in the hands of students throughout this whole first semester so that they can do more stuff not on the screens. But it's definitely been a struggle. Yeah, I mean, there's no 2 ways around that. So I'm going to add that to our agenda as well, Tom, for next week.
Yeah, that'd be great. So Valerie, we'll bring both those up with the high school team for conversation next week.
Thank you.
All right, I think we have time for one more question. I see Kelly's hand is up. I also know there's been some questions and conversation in the chat. I'll talk. Russ and Victor and I are working together on planning this and running these. So we'll talk and try to figure out a good strategy for the chat. I like the chat. I like that it's happening. There's an opportunity for you all to communicate and to see thoughts, but I'm worried that I'm not going to be able to answer questions from it. So we'll take a look at it and then reach out if there are individual questions that you're having, or you can feel free to reach out to us too. Kelly.
Hi, Tom. Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly. I'm a parent and a para in the district. I'm gonna go up my notes backwards. So I'm starting at the end of my thoughts and then I'll end at the beginning of my thoughts. So it might be a little out of order and I apologize.
All right.
I wanted to say that, the high school teachers that are wondering, how best to do remote stuff, have they tapped into the teachers that have been doing remote all year long? My son's 4th grade teacher, I swear you'd think she'd been doing this for 30 years. Like, she has a smooth class going. He's not on screen all day long at all. He has maybe 3 or 4 meetings mixed throughout the day, and he can tap into his teacher whenever he needs to support system that he calls his grandparents for certain math help or science help. So I think the teachers that have been teaching remote all along might be a really good resource because they've been practicing, they've been doing it, and some of them are doing it really, really well. So that's like a little plug for Miss Erkson, CP Smith. She's doing a fantastic bang up job.
Great.
Which then I get back to engagement. Somebody had been speaking about engagement. And when I say that my older son was not engaged in school, like, it's a fair understatement. He lived to leave the school. That was his job every day, was to just be able to leave at the end of the day. His engagement has now shot through the roof because he has the appropriate accommodations. We're doing 100% remote. He's at home. He has so few distractions and so few triggers at home because it is a safe space. So therefore he is engaged. And so I'm wondering if the level of engagement is due to just not feeling that safety, not feeling that depth of support, knowing if I stumble, somebody's right here. If I don't understand this teacher, there's somebody right here to help me. So I just thought that was something, which then my first thought was remote support. I too have been hearing a lot of families questioning whether they can start doing remote with their kids, if they can pull them. And that, led me to worrying about the state of remote right now for not for middle school, for elementary school. It's doing great. Like I said, my 4th grader is doing wonderful. I do wish he had a playground full of kids, in the middle of the day. I think that is our biggest loss, is that, just that social aspect. Middle school, however, we still don't have a science teacher. So like that makes me worried bringing in more 6th graders, that are expecting a science class and are pretty much expected to do the work very, very independently. I am on leave at home right now. I'm not in my classroom. I'm home supporting my kids, acting as my son's para. And it made me wonder, should we be a little preemptive and proactive and start asking the families that we know to be more at risk or more that have more challenges and hurdles to overcome? Should we be asking, what would you need? I know that 6th grade math, I'm struggling with, I'm doing okay. 4th grade math, those word problems, like I'm as frustrated as you, buddy. Like, let's try to figure this out. So I had to set up that he calls his grandfather. His grandfather can just figure it out, So I have the privilege and the luxury of being able to have a stronger support group that I can reach out to. But it would be great if we could offer a stronger support to our families that need those supports as well. Can we match up high school students with middle school students for tutoring, so the high school students earn credit for something and the middle school students get support from a big buddy sort of system? I feel like there's a lot of methods that we use in school that we kind of like fizzled out on, forgetting about a big buddy system, or just these resources that we already have that in theory cost financially, but may cost mental taxing, try to figure it all out.
Yeah.
And that's at the top of my notes, so I'm all done.
Got it. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I think I actually had the opportunity to read to the 2nd grade remote class and had an awesome time. It was right before the winter came, and I read a book about what the fox does when winter comes. And it was interesting to see and impressive to see the level of kind of structure around engagement that the teachers, the elementary remote teachers had. So I think, for families who feel like remote is the right place right now, that I'm in support of that. I think the majority of our families want to be in person and should be in person, but I think that, for remote, there is a place. I also think you're right that there's a learning there for us, for the people who are kind of remote teachers this year. They're more advanced in their understanding of how to do it, and we should benefit from them. And then I think maybe what I'll do, Russ, let's bring Stephanie to the next meeting. Stephanie Phillips is our Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and she's been working, her, Kelly, she's been working closely with the remote teachers and working on that side of the world. And so I want to bring her into the conversation as we're having these discussions about what learning looks like in this time. It's something I feel passionately about, and I'm also sort of been pulled away from the teaching and learning side of things more than I would like to have been, although I've been in, I think, almost every class in the district so far. But I'll bring Stephanie in so we can continue to have that conversation next time, Kelly. All right, we're at 1:03. If there are any follow-ups, just email me directly. My email is tflanagan at bsdvt.org. So just feel free to reach out directly to me with any specific questions that didn't get answered here. We're on the books again in 2 weeks. Is that right, Russ and Victor? 2 weeks. So we'll keep sending it out. Thank you all so much for being here. There are more people than I thought would be here we did this short notice. And so I really thank you. Thank you, Megan, for the idea and the nudge. Appreciate you and appreciate all of you for being here. Thank you. See you next time.
And folks, if it's helpful, I also dropped Victor's email in the chat and my email as well. If you feel like you want to copy us and we can try to point you in the right direction as well. So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right.
We will
Bye,
put the
everybody.
WCAX video up and out into the community. I'm just behind Meg. I'm so sorry. I've got 3 stories to share. The first one went up last night, Fox 4422. Are you talking about Macy's?
Yeah, I literally, the day someone sent it to me and a
Yeah.
friend said, do you think the chances are good they'll be in school in early March? And I said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I was such a
Same here.
naysayer. And so was like the feeling Val expressed, like hopeful, excited. And I haven't seen it out in Noel Green's communications, but it really was a game changer. And you'll get like me out in the community cheerleading for you instead of.
Yeah.
I put it up on the big screen for my kids. This is real. Yeah.
We have the 3 stories scheduled. The first one hit yesterday. One will hit tonight at 8 o'clock on Facebook, and another will hit tomorrow at 8. I don't know which one we're doing tonight, but
Now, if we don't do
ask Noel to
Facebook,
share too.
Yeah.
other ways besides Facebook?
What's that, Valerie? Tom, you can go.
Facebook.
All
You'll
right.
send
Bye,
it in-
everybody.
Is there ways to send it out other than Facebook? Is that what you said, Valerie?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, we have a community update that Tom is hoping to send on Friday, and I was thinking the links to the 3 web stories would be in there.
Super.
Great. Russ, do you have just 1 second?
Sure.
Can I bend here for 1 second? I think the more you can get it out faster, the better for the mental health of parents.
Okay.
So if you could send out, like, instead of waiting till Friday, if you could send out great news for BHS. I mean, it could be really that simple. And then just the 3 links. And then encourage Noel to do some best practices around, like, his emails recently have been much better and more comprehensive. But getting that information out would be huge.
Yep.
I think.
Now he's having a meeting tonight, right? Noel's having another one of these kind of, right? I have on my calendar for 6 tonight. Victor, does that sound right?
Say that again.
I have on my calendar that I got from somewhere that BHS is doing a night like this tonight with Noel from 6 to 7, like a conversation. No?
That's possible. I did not receive that.
I'm going to check my
Asked to
email.
be, I mean, part of the problem, Valerie, right? Like my daughter graduated, but
Right.
I have asked to be on all those emails so that I can be supported, but I will check.
Okay.
I wasn't invited, which is good because that's model time for my school.
Well, and I'm with Tom hosting our monthly advisory group with families tonight from 6:30 to 7:30. So I'm booked anyway.
I don't know where I got that from. Okay. Thank you all so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Nice to see you all. Take care. Bye.
Take care.